that are quite significant at this time?
There are probes to the planets, of course, coming soon. Is there plans for the grand tour missions to the major planets in the latter part of this decade?
In 1885, pioneer settlers in the Arizona Territory established the University of Arizona, which later became the land-grant institution in the state. The place they selected was the small town of Tucson on the Butterfield stage route, 60 miles north of the Mexican border, a town then known as the Old Pueblo. The superb climate has helped the university foster a growth, not only in size, but in quality as well. Outstanding scholars in all disciplines are attracted by a new way of life and new frontiers of teaching and research. It would be impossible to do justice here to all the accomplishments and activities of this campus of 30,000. Because of the clear skies in Arizona, there has been a rapid growth in space-age generated teaching and research. So we take a look at just a few of the many people and their activities who have brought distinction to the university in some of these scientific areas. These include the rapidly expanding fields of astronomy, optics, lunar and planetary studies, environmental research, and medicine. Medicine is a good example of the pioneer spirit which still exists not only at the University of Arizona, but throughout the state. When the need for a medical school was determined, a voluntary citizens' campaign raised the millions of dollars necessary to establish the college. No tax funds were used. Guiding the planning and development of this most modern of medical complexes has been Dr. Merlin K. Duval.
The newest college to arrive on the campus of the University of Arizona is the College of Medicine. It's been a very exciting thing to bring this college to the campus, and it's most important that you have an impression of why we're here. After a substantial argument that took place in the state about whether Arizona was ready for a medical school, it was decided that the state was not only ready, but that it did belong on the campus of the university in Tucson. The relationship that develops between a medical faculty and the faculty of the campus of the university is always of such a high order of importance that this overrode any other consideration with regard to where the school should be located. And now that we're here, approximately $31 million has already been raised from diverse sources. And with that money, we've constructed one of the biggest, most complex buildings under a single roof in the state of Arizona. It includes a 300-bed teaching hospital, and will provide us with the opportunity to mount every conceivable educational program in the health sciences. Perhaps the most exciting ingredient of this enterprise is bringing to the campus an additional dimension to its extraordinary faculty capabilities through the arrival of the basic and clinical medical sciences. The faculty is a very large faculty, and it's engaged in extensive programs not only in graduate and undergraduate medical education, but in research in the fields of cancer, heart disease, neurological problems, and many other similar enterprises.
Although the college is new, some of the research is already attracting national attention. For example, scar tissue, which can cause severe disability or even death, may be controlled as a result of these experiments. The animals are treated with dyes and chemicals to study the effect of certain chemicals on scar tissue during the healing process. X-rays are then used to compare the result. The laboratory biochemical studies of animal scar tissue, which involves the latest automated research equipment and computers, are a good example of how experimental surgery and biochemistry join together in solving major medical problems. The medical center includes the College of Medicine with the basic and clinical sciences buildings and the teaching hospital. Complementing the center's health service is the nearby College of Nursing. Nearly half of the nurses' training at the University of Arizona is composed of clinical courses in settings where the students will be giving nursing care to actual patients. Today, the University of Arizona is one of the largest and most complete universities in the country. It has 13 colleges and 29 divisions of research and special services. There are over 125 programs of study leading to a bachelor's degree and more than 100 master's programs and 65 doctoral programs. As the university continues to expand, virtually all aspects of campus life are supported in some way by the operation of the Computer Center.
The Computer Center was established in mid-1967. It provides facilities and services for instructional, research, and administrative computational needs of the university. We have installed as our principal computing resource a large-scale Control Data 6400 computer. It is primarily a high-speed general-purpose digital computer and may be used for a variety of tasks. Among the administrative users are the business office, the registrar, and the various service organizations on campus. Almost all of the departments on campus either do use or have expressed interest in using our equipment. And there are thousands of students over the period of existence of the Computer Center which have taken programming courses on the campus. We are, in this semester, moving forward to the establishment of remote input-output facilities on campus for greater convenience of use of the center.
The problems which a computer can be directed to solve appear to be unending. A sophisticated example is in ship design, where the computer analyzes the entire hull structure of giant tankers under anticipated service conditions. The computer can also demonstrate its versatility in other ways. From the controlled electronic setting of the computer, we move to the controlled organic setting of the Environmental Research Laboratory. The goal is to produce power, fresh water, and food in the arid portions of the world where only seawater is available. Extensive research is being conducted on the production of vegetables in controlled environmental greenhouses. Among other things, plant nutrition and growing media are studied. Here, the roots of tomatoes are sampled periodically to measure carbohydrate content in relation to the number of fruits. A pilot facility where the initial experiments have taken place is operated on the Gulf of California at Puerto Peñasco, Mexico, by the universities of Arizona and Sonora. Under this concept, conceived by Carl N. Hodges and his colleagues, as little water as possible is used. Salt water from the Gulf of California is distilled in these towers into 2,400 gallons per day of fresh water. Efforts continue to improve the system so that it might desalt more water at less cost. The desalted water is used for drinking as well as for irrigation water. The air-supported greenhouses are heated in winter and cooled in summer by circulating the air inside through a seawater spray. Greenhouses are important on desert seacoasts because they protect crops against the harsh environment.
These greenhouses are air-supported greenhouses which were designed by our engineers at the Environmental Research Laboratory of the University of Arizona. In these structures, we have done extensive research on varieties of vegetables which might do well in hot, humid environments of the world. The irrigation water is a product from our desalting plant, which again was designed by the engineers at the Environmental Research Lab. Here at this desalting plant, we utilize waste energy, heat mainly, to heat the salt water before it does go through the desalting process. The exhaust gases from the diesel engines are again captured and scrubbed till we end up with a pure product of CO2, which is injected into the greenhouses to enhance photosynthesis.
As a result of this plant, a similar installation has been built under contract by the Environmental Research Laboratory in the Arabian Peninsula Sheikhdom of Abu Dhabi. About 25 miles southwest of Tucson is the National Observatory Kitt Peak, the site of the University of Arizona's recently completed 90-inch reflector telescope. This telescope, among the largest in the world, was made possible by a grant from the National Science Foundation. Recent winner of the first National Academy of Sciences Gould Prize, Dr. Elizabeth Romer, is a University of Arizona professor of astronomy and a world-renowned authority on comets. We asked her about her recent work in observation of Comet Bennett.
Comets are always individuals, and the one thing we do remember about Comet Bennett is that it was one of the dustiest ones we've seen in a long time. Now, that did, in some ways, limit certain kinds of observations, but the characteristics of the dust itself was rather interesting.
What about the importance of comet d'Arrest?
Yes, Comet d'Arrest is another object that we are particularly interested in as perhaps the most likely candidate for the first space probe to a comet. It's under observation in 1970 and early 1971, and at its next return to the close vicinity of the Sun and the Earth in 1976, it will be an especially favorable location for the probe mission. It's just possibly samples in the immediate vicinity of the nucleus in this comet.
In your opinion, what are some of the more likely upcoming space probes?
Comet d'Arrest will be regarded as a practice mission to get engineering information, what sort of range of numbers one should expect to measure in sampling various properties of a comet. This will be practice for Halley's Comet in mid-1980s in all probability. That is one of the brightest of the predictable comets. And there's a strong contrast there. As Comet Bennett, we couldn't expect. We just simply had to take it as it came. But Comet Halley, we can plan for, even 15 years ahead of time.
Comet Halley will be visible in the Tucson area in what year, Doctor?
It may be possible to photograph it with this telescope as early as sometime in 1984. It is at its closest point to the Sun in February 1986, and it will be at its brightest within a few months before and after that time. People remember Halley's as an outstanding comet from 1910. Unfortunately, in 1986, things won't be quite so favorable, but we very definitely hope that people will be able to see it without any strong, big telescopes for at least a matter of some weeks, if not even a month or two.
Do you foresee any space probes to some of the outer galaxies within our lifetime?
Oh my, when you start talking about galaxies, that's an entirely different thing. There's comets are members of our solar system, just as the Earth and the planets, Jupiter and Saturn, are all members of our solar system. And as soon as we start talking about even other stars, it's just a completely different proposition as far as distances are concerned. Then you talk about galaxies, and that's another completely different
Working in
proposition.
close cooperation with both Stewart Observatory and Space Sciences is the Optical Sciences Laboratory of the university, headed by Dr. Aidan Meinel.
The Optical Sciences Center is a rather unique building on the campus of the University of Arizona. It has specialized research shops. It's a building that has the ground level some 50 feet below the surface of the ground, where our large optical laboratories are located. In this optical shop, we process some very large pieces of optics to study the development of large telescopes for both terrestrial and space applications. And we have other laboratories in the basement that also utilize the benefit of being deep underground, where there is little vibration and little change in temperature from day to night. The Optical Sciences program has now some 80 graduate students studying for advanced degrees. This makes Arizona one of the few schools in the United States that has a graduate program in optics. The research here that we do covers several interesting fields, not only space type of research programs, but also programs of medical interest. For example, we have a program for pattern recognition of cancer cells, completely done by instrumentation and computer techniques. We have a new telescope project of considerable interest to astronomers, a very large one. In fact, it will be larger than the Soviet telescope, the 240-inch. But we are making this out of 6 smaller telescopes combined together to give a large telescope. We call this synthetic aperture. And its advantage is simply that we can get a large telescope for a very small fraction of the cost of the equivalent large telescope. So this project is now underway, and we have several of the large mirrors for this project currently down in our optical shop in the basement. I think that you will have an interesting sight of these large mirrors. They are lightweight, made of fused silica, and this new instrument we hope soon to be established at the field station of the University of Arizona, at Kitt Peak, or at one of the other sites such as Mount Lemmon, where the university also has another field station.
The University of Arizona's Lunar and Planetary Laboratory operates an observatory in the Catalina Mountains near Tucson at an elevation of 8,400 feet, the highest stellar and planetary observatory in the United States. Dr. Gerard P. Kuiper is the head of the laboratory and its operations, and has been instrumental in acquiring a high degree of cooperation from NASA for a variety of lunar laboratory projects. One such project is a telescope on Mount Lemmon built with funds provided by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. This telescope, which has been in operation since 1964, has been used primarily for photographing the moon and the planets. The mirror was constructed and polished at the university's Lunar and Planetary Laboratory. The installation of several large telescopes are planned for the near future atop a former radar site on Mount Lemmon. One such telescope, already in operation on the site, specializes in infrared photography.
The Lunar and Planetary Laboratory at the University of Arizona covers, as the name implies, studies of the moon and the planets. And from the beginning of this laboratory at the university about a decade ago, we have very closely cooperated with the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, in carrying out our programs. This building was provided to us by NASA and the Space Sciences Building, and some of our telescopic equipment was provided to us by NASA, and the NASA support has been very important to supplement the very important support by the university itself. I'd like to start out with one very important discovery that was made at this laboratory, and that was somehow recently in the newspapers incorrectly attributed. That was that the planet Jupiter is a star. This discovery was made at this laboratory by Dr. Frank Lowe, and he found that not only Jupiter but also Saturn radiates more energy than it receives from the sun, and therefore may be regarded as a very, very faint star as well as a planet. Now, our programs then cover the two broad areas of lunar studies and planetary studies. The lunar studies are closely related to similar studies of the Earth. So we visit volcanoes in Hawaii, we take films, we study the lava flows and the volcanic eruptions in Hawaii and other places, and then interpret what we see on the very good records of the moon. We will have intensive studies also on the planets Jupiter and Saturn. In fact, we have set up a small chemical laboratory here where we produce the compounds that are likely to be present in the atmospheres of those planets. And my colleagues sometimes accuse me of smelling up the laboratory because the Jupiter and Saturn have some terrible smelling compounds in their atmospheres. The colors are very interesting. We are able to reproduce those in the laboratory. And this particular reference Sill, one of our graduate students who is making those detailed studies of the chemistry of these two giant planets. And these are just some of the programs in this laboratory that contribute to its overall value, both to the university and to NASA.
One of the most intricate and important steps in preparing the finished telescope is polishing the mirror. The grinding has to be so precise that months or even years are necessary to bring the surface to near perfection. Here in the Lunar and Planetary Laboratory, new methods are constantly being developed to improve the quality of the mirror surface. Another activity of the laboratory is in the recreation of the areas of the moon's surface. With composite mosaic photos of the moon as a reference, a clay model is made detailing the physical characteristics of a particular segment of the moon in an effort to determine the origin of that particular area. Eventually, the model will be cast in plaster to form a more durable surface. Painstaking research such as this has contributed to the successful landings on the moon's surface by American astronauts, similar to this one achieved by Apollo 14 astronauts Shepard and Mitchell. The exploration of space has truly led to new frontiers of teaching and research at the University of Arizona. From its humble beginnings in 1885 to what it is today, a university on the move, the University of Arizona has grown to take its place among the leaders in teaching, in research, and in service. This is a dynamic and growing institution, one that is moving and changing to meet the challenges of the future.